I wanted to ask you, you guys were talking about cross-platform a lot, and you have a little bit of experience there in terms of some work you've been doing with ESPN, with Crown Liquor. So tell us a little bit about the cross-platform program, how you guys planned it out, how you measured it, and some results.
Yeah. So we worked with one of our clients, and we worked actually with ESPN on a cross-platform test. And it was really looking at a category of sports fans and how their cross-screen usage, activity. Think about what we heard earlier with Nielsen, the 3 Rs, is really based on looking at some of those reach, the resonance, and performance, how well that campaign would perform. And the results that we got from that campaign were really interesting. What we found was that when you think about cross-screen, and usage and reach, it's really a multiplier effect. What we found is that, using a mobile phone for your video or using your computer or online video didn't take away from any other screen. It was actually an additive effect. So you actually found that, while maybe a segment of our users, maybe half the users, actually were multitasking across screens, but 75% of their usage of content was across screen. So you can see that their usage was really at a high level.
So what's the value to your client? How do you explain that, and what's the implications for other brands here?
Yeah, I think the value to our client is that being able to take messaging and then customizing messaging to that environment. TV does really a nice job of visually enhancing a message where, we found that in some other spaces that getting a little bit more detailed, because that screen allowed you to be a little bit more personal, allowed for a little bit more detailed information to come through. So it's really allowing our clients to customize and think creatively about customizing messaging to that particular screen, and think about it as a story across. It's not just necessarily taking maybe one piece of content and splattering across, but it's how do you create content that really leverages the abilities of that screen.
And what about the abilities to target, to create things that are somewhat addressable? I guess with the web it can be done. With mobile it's a little harder, but what about addressability across screens, and how important is that?
There's a lot of data out there that takes a lot of purchase information, allows you to then marry that to TV and online. So now you can create segments. You can take a purchaser target and find that target in television. You find them online. And I think the advantage of that is again, it allows you to then create segments so that if one of your segments, when you look at your target, is really needs a little bit more engagement, now you can plan accordingly. You can think about the screen and how you customize that message to bring out more engagement. If the other part of segments maybe just heavy users and you just need to remind them more often, then you can allow TV to kind of create that visualization, reminder, a lot of frequency. So it actually allows you to think about how to reach different parts of your segments.
Now, you guys have done some studies about which brands work with best in particular channels. Could you explain that a little bit about what about the study and what are some of the takeaways there?
Well, it's kind of getting back to our study with ESPN, and I think what we found again was that for brands and for content that was kind of more visually oriented, TV really did a nice job of that. Allowed us to think about the internet and about mobile a little bit differently. I think the thing with mobile, I'll use an example. I was at a Cleveland Indians game. Don't ask me why I was at a Cleveland Indians game, but a few weeks back. And it was interesting because I thought about, in the old days when you watched a baseball game, a lot of times you have people with a radio, right? So you listen to the announcer with a radio. You could hear the announcer on the radio and watch your game. So at the Cleveland Indians game, there was a gentleman behind me, he's 65 or older, and he had his radio. 2 rows in front of me were a few younger guys, and they had their mobile phones. And they were watching on Gamecast, and they were getting little stats next to it. And I thought that was an interesting kind of, of how people use these screens and how they use them differently, and how they can bring relevance. For the older generation, it was the relevance of an announcer. For the younger generation, it's really about the need for instant gratification of information and stats. So again, it's thinking about how you can take how people use these screens and customize your message and leverage that.
And how does it work for different brands, though? Is there a difference? I mean, obviously, there's a liquor might be different but.
Yeah, I don't. Liquor carries its own. Certainly, its own challenges, but I don't necessarily think it's by brand. I think it's by when you think about your targets and your consumers and your messaging. You also have to have the right message to go across screen. So I think it's more than just the brands.
Mm-hmm. And what about the state of metrics and planning tools right now? And how does that stand, and where do we need to go? We talked again earlier about the pain points, but if you could sort of give your point of view on that.
Yeah, I would say from a metric standpoint, when you think about cross-screen planning, optimization, there's certainly some tools out there allow you to do that. On the agency side, a lot of that data can't reside on our side because of privacy, whether you're talking about set-top box data or information like that. We can't take that, get down to respondent level data and tumble it. So that doesn't allow us to truly customize it. So I think what we need is data that we can have internally, get down to respondent level to be able to integrate both TV and online video and mobile and even cinema. I'd say that's another screen to kind of think about as well when you think about screens in general. So I think it's really a matter of having a currency that we can understand the reach and it's true the unduplicated reach across these screens. It's going to take respondent level data that's probably not the big data, and it's not going to be single source because you need such a big panel to have all the combinations you need to get to unduplicated reach. You'd need too big of a panel, it'd be too much money. So there's something in between those 2 points that we need to get to.